Hello, I want to welcome all our viewers. My name is David Barker. I'm producer-director for Creatus Media, and I am here on Friday, July 24th, with Dr. Shana Clark for Ask Dr. Shana. Dr. Shana, what are we going to talk about today?
Well, I'm going to be switching back from trying to make some suggestions as to how people might cope with whatever the coronavirus effects in their life are, to more traditional psychiatric subjects. And I thought I would start today with the commonest psychiatric subject in any Western country, anytime, which is anxiety.
Okay.
And I think the point that I'm going to make today is that if you can find a reason to be glad, to be happy, to be appreciative of your circumstances, even though you may have some very difficult ones, that will be a considerable help to you.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was working as a psychiatrist, I'm now retired, that I encountered a man who had lost a foot in one of our many wars, and he was constantly going on about, why did I have to lose my foot, and I'm so unlucky, and this is so terrible, even though he had been supplied with a fairly sophisticated replacement for his foot. So he could stand, he could walk around, he could even run to catch a bus.
Mm-hmm.
But he was perpetually very unhappy and always thinking about what terrible thing awaited him today or tomorrow and so on. And then I encountered another man who was a veteran of the same war, and he had lost both feet. He didn't have the sophisticated prosthetic apparatus that the first guy had, and he just had sort of rubber boats that he could put the stumps into, and he could get up and walk around, and but he didn't have the ability to walk for a considerable space.
Okay.
But he had no negatives to say about having lost his feet, because he said, I'm so lucky, I'm still alive. And there are a great many of his comrades who were not here to make that statement.
Mm-hmm.
And he also said, I have no flashbacks or fears and he said, so the only problem I have is the feet, and I can get around. So the contrast between those two attitudes was very striking. And I will also tell you that the guy who had lost both feet was full of gratitude that he was still alive,
Mm-hmm.
that when he came home, his wife took him back and his family life was proceeding quite normally, and he was enjoying life. Whereas the poor guy who lost one foot and was always complaining about it felt badly done by and felt betrayed and felt all kinds of nasty feelings. And I learned from that if your attitude in general is positive, that will help you an awful lot with anxiety.
Okay, I'd like to just, for my own clarity, can you give a good definition? What is anxiety? I mean, it's a term we use a lot, but
Okay, it is a feeling of apprehension or misgiving about either the near future or the more distant future. Something terrible which may be defined or may not be defined is going to happen to me. And unfortunately, a lot of people say, oh, I'm always the one who gets stuck with the bad news. And I think if you look honestly around other people's lives, you will find out that their grandmother died last year and their husband had a heart attack yesterday. In other words, they have plenty of problems. So don't feel put upon. It is the nature of human existence to have good things happen and to have bad and sometimes totally unexpected things happen, such as someone dies in a car crash when they left that morning quite healthy and they had no idea that this was going to be the day they died. And I think the best thing one can do about anxiety is, first of all, I've just turned 70 a couple of days ago. I wake up these mornings and I say, hey, I'm awake, I'm alive. Thank you, Lord. That's my personal conviction, doesn't have to be everybody else's, for giving me another day. And I don't presume that I'm going to have tomorrow. Now, like any other person, I will make a statement to someone saying, I will see you next Wednesday or something. We all know when we reach a certain age that that's subject to revision if something terrible happens. But I also think it is very useful if one can really think about the fact that we are all human beings are people of flesh and blood that may die at any moment, and that we should enjoy as long as we can. And when our time comes, either to die suddenly or to get something which will work towards my death work towards our death in a few weeks or few months, we just say, well, I guess my number is up. And as a friend of mine who is in her late 80s said to me, I don't know when the next step is coming, but I know it's coming. And when it does, I'll just say, well, here we go.
no sense worrying about what may or may not happen until it happens, right?
Well, there are some things one can prepare for, like having some life insurance so that your family is not destitute at the moment you die. Having a healthcare proxy, somebody that you trust who is empowered to speak on your behalf as to things like, shall we put him on a ventilator, or has he always said he didn't want to be on a breathing machine, in which case we won't. But in general, take every opportunity you can to be joyful, and even for small joys, like you've had a hobby for many years and you can still pursue that hobby and it really makes you happy. Well, for heaven's sakes, don't neglect your hobby. You know, go for what makes you feel good, provided that making you feel good is not unfairly costing somebody else. In other words, you're not, shall we say, getting into your neighbor's sports car and driving off without the neighbor's permission. That's not a very nice thing to do. But anxiety in general is a feeling of apprehension, even for some people, dread, about what is going to happen in the immediate future, the near future. And there are some things you can do. Right now, I'm looking at Mr. Barker, who's a good friend, and I don't think particularly about being taped to be seen by, I don't know, and the things that might make me anxious. And if I have a meeting that I'm not looking forward to, well, so do what I used to do with big exams. If the exam started at 10 a.m. and was over at noon, I would say to myself, by 1 o'clock you can be eating lunch. You know, and focus on it's going to be over.
One question. Are there any physical symptoms that people will experience when they are in anxiety? Some people may not even realize that they're anxious.
If they get to the point of physical symptoms, it's unusual that they wouldn't recognize that they're anxious. But common one is sweaty palms, heart beating faster than usual,
Is there a constriction in the chest sometimes, or kind of feeling of tightness?
there can be. I would be inclined to tell people to check that out with their doctor, because it may be there's something called complex angina, which is, angina means insufficient oxygen to the heart, but complex angina means when the person is anxious. In other words, under particular circumstances. And there are medications that a person can take for their anxiety. But in general, it's a good idea to think, my palms are sweating and my heart's pounding. I think I'm getting anxious. Let's slow down a little bit and realize that what I'm anxious about is, say, a meeting for tomorrow. Well, fine, it's for tomorrow, so I don't have to worry about it today. Or if I have to have some papers prepared for the meeting, well, if I get them prepared today, then I'll be less anxious tomorrow. But generally, it's a very good idea to say, I woke up alive this morning, and if the story is that my husband had a heart attack yesterday, well, thank goodness we both made it through the night. Hallelujah. And be grateful as much as you can. I mean, there's even little things like you stood in line to talk to a federal official for a while, and you finally got to the federal official who turned out to know the form that you're filling out inside, outside, down, and backwards, and handled it all very efficiently. So you weren't standing at the booth with the official for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I got off easy. You know, sometimes you hit a trainee, and if you have the time, you can say to yourself, well, this is my opportunity to pay in some good stuff and help the trainee learn his job. And if you take every opportunity that presents itself to help somebody else out, that will make you feel very good. I think myself that the universe has decided, in order to encourage us to do good things, that when you do something good, it really feels wonderful. And when you do something that you shouldn't be doing, it doesn't feel so hot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, that's my nugget for today.
Oh, this has been fantastic. I really enjoyed it. And do you think there might be more information that you'd give on anxiety later, or?
Yes, I could go into it more. The thing is, it's very helpful if you know what is the situation of the person who's feeling anxious,
Mm-hmm.
because then you can offer do this and don't do that kind of suggestions. Whereas, since I'm talking to whoever's out there, I don't know that.
Mm-hmm. So they could either find some professional in their area, or they could possibly, even though you're not their doctor, they could talk to you, email you, or give you a call, actually, would be the best.
Well, I prefer phone calls because you can hear a lot in the person's tone of voice. Are they being sarcastic? Are they making a joke?
Mm-hmm.
And you can hear that in their tone of voice, and you can get awfully sidetracked in an email about something like that because you don't know how to interpret it. And I don't ever want to be the person who, in spite of being told something, doesn't understand. And an email, I can't immediately say, do you mean that this way or that way? Whereas on a phone call, I can say, how do you mean that?
Mm-hmm. And we will put that phone number is up on the screen right now, and people can call that between the hours of 4:30 and 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And if for any reason Dr. Clark's not available, please leave a message and she'll give you a call back.
Thank you. So, my objective in this, I was asked earlier, is, in spite of the fact that I'm a retired physician, there is such a dearth of good psychiatry in this country that I'm hoping to help at least some people some of the time. And so go on contributing to society. That's my entire objective. I don't make money from these tapings. I'm not promoting anything. And all I want to do is be helpful.
That's terrific. Well, I thank you for doing these. And I look forward to having many more viewers. And please tune in or look online for Ask Dr. Shana. Thank you so much, and have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.